Hi, my name is Clinton, and I'm the marketing director here at TFS Properties. I'm joined here by our vice president, Eddie, and our company's financial analyst, Salesian. And this is our first podcast, Agents. I wanted to start this podcast as a way to give people more insight into our agents and eventually expand it into the real estate industry as a whole. But for today, we're gonna kind of learn a little bit about Eddie, learn a little bit about Salesian, what they do for the company, and what our company actually is. First of all, welcome. Hi guys, how you guys doing today?
How's it going, brother? Doing well.
Doing well. Thank you so much. Salesian, how are you doing?
Doing good. Happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you guys' time. I know you guys are super busy, so I really appreciate you guys showing up.
No doubt. Let's rock and roll.
Awesome. So Eddie, just to kind of start off, could you tell us a little bit about TFS Properties, what it is that we do, and what it is that makes us really special? Because we're not like your average regular real estate brokerage, are we?
Absolutely not. TFS Properties, we started this project back in, I would say, 2015. We were a small team of brokers comprised of myself, Mac, our principal broker, Rusty, our president, and slowly our team started growing over the years. We recruited you to spearhead our digital marketing team, and as well as a mutual friend, Michael. And from there, our team just grew slowly, and now we have a full-fledged commercial real estate brokerage and residential real estate brokerage that focuses on buying and selling property here in LA, particularly the San Gabriel Valley where we grew up in, and also out-of-state properties. So here we are.
So would you say that what really makes us special is we're not just selling the home that you're going to live in down the street, right? Like we have inventory all over the country, Florida, Houston, places like that?
Yeah, I mean, in commercial real estate, you're kind of acclimated to looking at deals out of state. But being that we're in the beautiful golden state of California, a lot of the investors that I work with made a substantial fortune owning and buying properties here in California from a very, very young or decades prior. A lot of our clientele came to the States late 70s, early 80s, bought multifamily properties when property values were 10 cents on the dollar to what they are today. They have a ton of equity, but when it comes time to capturing that equity, they need to figure out what to reinvest the capital into, and that's where we come into play. We quarterback the whole process of selling the property, finding the replacement property, and also opening their horizons beyond what we see here in LA. The market's been great. We've benefited from a very high appreciation trajectory since 2009, our last real estate crash. And when I got into the business, we were just on the tip of the upswing. And so, many investors have experienced strong appreciation, but the big question is, and I think what everybody's trying to figure out is, where is this market heading into 2022 post-pandemic? And we're very lucky that the products that we started investing into in the out-of-state market were very resilient and very strong and are performing really well, and they're a great hedge. We'll go into that later.
And even now it's gaining popularity, right? Like big institutional firms like, I can't remember the name, Blackstone? The Blackstone
was
Group,
one of them, yeah.
They're looking into like single family rentals in the markets that we're actually looking at, like in Indianapolis, right?
Absolutely, and Sal can tell you a story. I mean, before Sal came and joined our team, Sal was actually a client, and even before that, a good friend of mine. And we were introduced to the Dallas market very early on, back in 2016. And Sal and I are both big car guys, and when Toyota announced that they were moving out to Dallas, Texas, specifically Plano, Texas, in that North DFW market, Sal, who was already looking into out-of-state markets, and we came across a deal put together by a buddy of mine. He was a developer. He was building a small subdivision out in Texas, in Dallas, in the Dallas Metroplex, and we flew out there with Sal's wife, did our due diligence. We went and hit up all of the cities, northern Dallas, Plano, McKinney, Allen, and we stumbled across a beautiful townhome. Through the relationships that we had with the developer, not only did we save about 15% off of market price, it was an off-market deal, and that same property that Sal purchased for $250,000. Sal, how much do you think it's worth today?
Oh, I just got an update from Redfin. It's at $350 right now.
Awesome. How many years have you had that home for?
We bought it in 2017, so it's been I've gotten great cash flow on it.
Mm-hmm.
almost 9% cash flow from there, as well as appreciation, as you could see from how popular Dallas has gotten.
And you bought it originally for the cash flow. So on top of getting the cash flow, you're also experiencing the appreciation. So it's like a double win for you.
It is. I did not expect the appreciation from there. Again, I was just looking for the cash flow because it was my very first property investment. I just wanted to see it grow from there. But the appreciation, I just brought me so much far further ahead.
Keep in mind, side note here, the appreciation was kind of like a bonus kicker to the whole investment. What most people don't realize is the Midwest markets tend to be more cash flow driven and appreciation is secondary. So when I'm flying out to these conferences in the Midwest and networking with commercial brokers and residential brokers, they're looking at California and kind of laughing because while we did hit the gold mine with awesome appreciation, our cash flow in comparison to the rest of the country
Pretty slim.
is a fraction of what they are experiencing and have been experiencing over time.
I mean, just an example, what are cap rates like in LA compared to Indianapolis for a single family rental?
Yeah, so cap rates, and for those of you that don't know what a cap rate is basically how we quantify return when we're taking properties in one location versus another, and we're just comparing them side by side. So cap rates in LA, right now at least, are probably in that 3 to 4% pocket. I mean, maybe if you're out in the IE, you could get a little bit more yield, but also a different demographic, right? But if you think about it, if I'm an investor today and I know that the cash flow here is anywhere between 3 to 4.5%, and if I go to the bank today and I wanted to get a mortgage on that property, I know for a fact that no matter how good my credit is, no matter how strong of a real estate portfolio I have, my interest rate is probably going to be pretty close to that. And traditionally, you could put 25% down and you can rent out property out to tenants and they would cover your mortgage and you would get cash flow on top of that. But in this marketplace, the appreciation is far superior than the actual rent bumps that a landlord experiences. And so, long story short, the cash flow, you're barely breaking even on the cash flow side when you're looking at California markets.
Compared to like in Indianapolis, what's the percentage like there?
In Indianapolis, cap rates are 8 to 10%. The deals that we find are 8 to 10% cash flow. And in that circumstance, the interest rate remains the same, but my cash flow is far superior. My buying power is far superior. I'm not only covering my mortgage all day long, my cash and cash return blows out of the water in comparison to here.
So you're saying I invest 100,000 here versus 100,000 in Indianapolis, I'll make maybe 20, 30,000 over here where I'll make 80 to, am I doing the math right? No. If I invest 100,000 over here, I'll make 2 to 3,000. If I invest 100,000 over there, I'll make 8,000.
Well, first of all, you can't even buy a house here for 100,000, so
That's
you'll be
true.
buying like a third of the house,
Can you buy a house in Indianapolis for 100,000?
You absolutely can. So Midwest, blue-collar towns, houses trade anywhere between 100, 150K, at least the ones we like to target, right? Because if you go higher, it's kind of like buying a Beverly Hills home and trying to get good yield from that. You're buying at the top of the market as far as price point goes, and then you're competing with owner occupants. So,
and your buying purchasing power is a lot stronger. You have a lot more purchasing power in Indianapolis as opposed to here, like you were saying earlier.
Exactly. That's why I encourage my investors who are looking to build a portfolio quicker to focus on the markets that have good cash flow and lower barriers of entry. Texas properties are, again, a fraction of what they are here in LA. So you can essentially buy 2 properties for the price of 1.
Right. And I think that's a great thing to bring up. I think one of the things that separates us from other agencies is little things like that we do, like our tours, our concierge service. We have all these little type of things that really set us apart. And would you say that that's the case as well? Like, how many other places that or how many agencies do you know take their clients on tours? Like, is that something that you think really sets us apart?
We do that pretty routinely, right, Sal? I mean, Sal was my guest on one of our Dallas tours,
And this is way back in the day, right?
This is back in like 2016 when he was doing his due diligence on out-of-state markets. And yeah, as a beginning agent at that time, I flew out there with Sal, with his wife, and we just spent 3 days, rented a car, and drove everywhere in Dallas. And we knew the area was booming, but we wanted to see, touch, and feel the real estate like many of the Los Angeles investors that we work with. So that's the only way you can get exposure and see what's really beyond, these California state lines. And we have a lot of fun doing it at the same time, It's not just about looking at property. It's getting to understand who are the people there, who are the people that are coming into the market, what good food is out there. We do a lot of sightseeing, and all of these things are, and what's the weather like there.
Yeah.
And all of these things are very important when we're factoring, livability and getting a better understanding of why people are going to those markets.
And it's not like you don't just do this with like 1-2 people. Like this is a routine thing. You'll consistently take investors out just to help them better understand the property that they're buying into and really give them that sense of confidence, right?
For sure. Fortunately, we built a lot of relationships with brokers in out-of-state markets. So, whenever we fly to Dallas, for instance, I have at least 10 guys I can call that can show me around, invite us to their home, tell us what's happening in each submarket within the city. And we have a lot of fun doing that. We love networking. We love connecting with other brokers. In real estate agency, you really need to have as many allies as you can get in order to get a good deal these days.
And I've been with you on these trips, so it's a ton of fun. You really learn a lot, but also I really enjoy myself, even though I'm out there working.
Yeah, for sure. And, we used to do this on a quarterly basis, but where we are today, we're literally in somewhere within the country every single month. It doesn't matter if it's Indy, Houston, Carolinas, Florida. We are literally somewhere every single month, either finding new deals or doing due diligence on deals that we have under contracts.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great. To just kind of give a little bit of insight into, who you are, because we've kind of been talking about TFS Properties for a while. I like to kind of dive into a little bit of, who you were in your past, like what little Eddie was like, because, real estate wasn't something that you always did, right? Like in your adult career. This is something that you kind of pursued the last 5 to maybe 7 years of your life, I would say.
Yeah, I would say like taking it to the next level and being 100% into real estate started about 7 years ago.
Awesome. But in the past, like even as a kid in your family growing up, they were involved in real estate. They might not have been agents, but they were investors from what I understand, right?
Yeah, so I always grew up, in the San Gabriel Valley, right next to Pasadena in a small town called San Marino. And
You stayed there your whole life, born, raised there, grew up there.
Oh yeah, our office is in San Marino, so this is
So
our
you're a
neck
San
of the
Marino
woods.
kid.
Absolutely. I mean,
sure.
I can tell you how many times I've walked up and down Huntington Drive just to, go to the elementary school, middle school, high school. San Marino is that tight-knit of a town where all schools are on one major street.
Wow,
and then it's just surrounded by, really beautiful homes. So my exposure to real estate came from me going to my friend's house. I lived on sort of the lower median home pricing side of San Marino.
Still a nice area. Like I've seen your house. It's not bad.
It's transitioned quite a bit from what it was, 25, 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But some of my friends live in some of the most beautiful real estate here in California. It is pretty much the American dream, suburbs, beautiful homes.
We're talking like 5,000 square feet, like 8,000 square feet homes, like.
Not just the square footage. San Marino as a city is very particular on the upkeep of their homes. It's always known for its wonderful school district. It's one of the top schools in terms of academic indicators, right? And that's why a lot of people want to get into San Marino. But more importantly than that, they've done a great job preserving the heritage, the history of the city. A lot of the homes you'll see are traditional mission-style homes, Spanish Revival mission-style homes. And so to get a permit, and also American homes as well, built in like the 1930s to 70s, sort of that period. But anyways, in order to get a permit approved to rebuild a home or renovate a home, you have to go through a very stringent process, and that's why a lot of people dread, renovating San Marino homes. But if you can get into one, it's some of the most beautiful private homes that is extremely safe, and that's why I feel lucky to be able to be in this city.
Right on. And you said you grew up there, you went to school there, so you have a lot of friends, and that really is like your hub. So it's almost like coming full circle that you have a real estate agency in the city that you grew up in, a couple minutes down the street from you.
Yeah. No, it's definitely been a blessing, the stars align. When I was looking for an agency to sign with, it just happened that, our president, Rusty, and Mac, our principal broker, were pivoting from the estate planning world and wanting to open up brokerage. And, obviously there's a lot of, Asian people here in our community in the San Gabriel Valley in general, and I was tasked to not only help them transition that business, but also build a client base with the Asian community, and those are my people.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in San Marino, like you have that connection with the community.
Absolutely, and I can tell you about my Asian experience in another episode of our podcast or another conversation, but that's a huge reason I am who I am today. The people I was introduced to a very early age, the type of families that were also going through that Asian American struggle, business owners alike. That's really helped shape who I am today, because the same people that I grew up getting to know are the people that are my clients today. And that early exposure really paid dividends for me later on. I could tell you that because of the neighborhood that we grew up in and the heavy Asian demographic, I was forced to take on Chinese school, which I dreaded. Every single Saturday, we'd be going to Chinese school instead of, playing sports. Well, we played sports too, but that took precedence over, playing Pokemon or video games or things like that.
Education and becoming intellectually prepared is very, very important in the Asian community.
Yeah. So anyways, long story short, without my Mandarin skills, learning Mandarin at an early age, I would probably not have half of the clients that I have today. So.
Right on. I mean,
thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. Yeah.
And let's kind of speak on that. I think your friends really drove, your friends and family really drove a lot of, who you are today. So I would say, your uncles kind of gave you a lot of, that exposure into that really high-end life to give you that kind of drive, right? I think based on, me and Eddie are actually friends. We've been friends for a while now. So I kind of have and we even lived together for 6 months, 9 months, something like that.
We did, yep, at one of my family's apartments, yeah.
Right, yeah. So I kind of know a little bit. And I remember you telling me about your uncle who kind of influenced you really heavily in your life and a lot of your friends as well. And can you kind of talk about maybe your high school experience, your college experience, and what that was like and how it shaped your outlook on life today?
Absolutely. All of the real estate investors that I know have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I was handed that book as soon as I got into the investment world as an investor, and I equate my experience and my relationships with my uncle and my dad as the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. My dad, probably more a frugal, he came from traditional Taiwanese background, grew up very poor, saved every single penny and still saves every single penny. But you know what? That's just who my dad is. That was the environment that he grew up in. He gave everything to put me in a position to succeed. And while he was, based on the book, my quote-unquote poor dad, he taught me things that I should know about in life, how to treat people. And he definitely values everything in his own world. Whereas my rich dad, my uncle, exposed me to all of my entrepreneurial foundations, right? My uncle came in the late 60s. His dad actually came, my granduncle came to America in the late 60s, starting a scrap metal business, did very well, pivoted that scrap metal business into forming a faucet company, which is the largest faucet company in Taiwan. And from a very early age, I would always bounce, ideas with my uncle because I looked at, the beautiful home that they lived in, the business that they had, and the number of employees that he had, the Taiwan factory that he also managed and operated, and how he was flying back and forth from Taiwan to the States all the time. That was something that really resonated with me because, whereas my dad would be at home all the time, fixing faucets and things like that.
Very conservative lifestyle.
Correct. And who worked for my granduncle, by the way. Versus my granduncle who was holding all of these business meetings and trying to expand it and exponentially grow the business. I realized that was the type of life that I wanted to experience grow into. So
that's funny because I feel like your life has kind of grown into that. You're constantly on the phone, meetings, dealing with people, getting deals done, and you have employees under you just like your granduncle.
I have great teammates like Sal and all of the team members at TFS Properties, but thank you, Uncle Frankie, for showing me, what it's like to be an entrepreneur, like a serious entrepreneur. You get to reap the benefits when things are good, but you also have to, take on massive amount of pressure and responsibilities as a business owner and follow through with all of your commitments and your promises because your reputation precedes you. And if you don't have your reputation, who's going to do business with you? So
Word is bond. It takes a million years to build up a reputation and 2 seconds to destroy it.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome, awesome. And then like going into your college life, I remember that was a huge influence on who you are today as well. Like your uncle kind of gave you that drive, that kind of entrepreneurial vision. But I think college really gave you a lot of those connections, gave you a lot of those friendships, those long lasting friendships that, even 10 years down the line, 10 years after college, you're still talking to those same people.
Yeah, yeah. So, long story short, my time at SC are years that I would never ever forget. And I worked really hard to get into SC. I was a straight A student up until junior year of high school. Then my parents divorced. They get along now today, but at that time it was pretty rough. And this was in the middle of 2009 where there was a housing crisis, right? So public schools all over the country were doing budget cuts, and because of the budget cuts, it was getting harder and harder to get into school. Keep in mind, I'm in San Marino High School where 1,600 is just, anybody could get a 1,600 on SATs.
1,600
I'm sorry, it just transitioned to the 2,400 SATs, but it's back to 1,600s now. But
16 out of 18, right? So that's a pretty high score. 16 out of 18.
1,600 out of 1,600 is a maximum score.
Okay.
I apologize. We got to take it back to the 2,400 score, right? All of my peers were getting like close to perfect scores, and in addition, loading themselves with AP classes and things like that.
So competition was fierce.
Exactly. So I actually caved in on my academics at the worst possible time, where all the colleges were looking at me, right?
Junior year.
Yep. And then I entertained the idea of going to a city college just to get my courses and transfer to a UCLA or USC, where I really wanted to be all along. But what ended up happening was I got a scholarship to Cal Poly Pomona, and at the time, getting into class was damn near impossible. I was only registering for like 2 classes a quarter. And so what I did was I emailed all of my teachers that were full, and I said, hey, look, I'm one of the students experiencing difficulties getting to class due to the budget cuts. Can you get me in? And that was sort of a backdoor way for me to get into class, because they gave me a code when I signed up. And by doing that, whereas in PCC, I would probably get 1 class at the time.
Yeah.
I was able to load full 4 to 5 classes every quarter. I got A's in all those classes, and USC was the only school that would allow me to apply, and I was applying for their Marshall undergraduate program. So I applied within my first year, right, after my Cal Poly Pomona studies, and I got into USC, and the rest is
After the
history.
first year.
Yes.
Which usually takes people 2.
Exactly.
Nice. So you were itching. You were dying to get into USC. You did not
Absolutely.
want to stay in a community college.
Not to diss the public school system, USC had the networks and the connections that I was looking for
Got
in
it.
order to fulfill my entrepreneurial endeavors. And from there, that's where I met my good buddy Sal. We are in the same fraternity, but beyond that, our bond is very strong due to the fact that, instead of hazing me, Sal took on the role to mentor me and teach me things like areas of finance I had no idea about. And so for that, I'm eternally grateful.
And eventually Sal ended up being one of your investors and now one of your partners.
Absolutely, yep.
Awesome, awesome. So it seems like for college life gave you a lot of those connections, gave you a lot of those access to different groups that helped you build those lifelong friendships that still benefit you now. Those friends are now your investors, now your colleagues, things of that nature, yeah?
Yeah, it's come full circle. I mean, investing is so key in our generation this day and age.
Definitely.
All the information is more available to us now than what it was, generations prior. And so I feel like our generation is more in tune with, trading stocks, cryptocurrencies, real estate. All of that should be a part of everybody's portfolio. And being that we're like knee deep into the real estate arm of investments, and we also trade stocks and crypto as well. So we have deep discussions about that. A lot of people lean on us for information on what's happening in the real estate market. I started out preaching out-of-state markets on Snapchat in 2015 when I had no audience, right? And only like 20, 30 viewers. But slowly, these same people, which were my close friends, started hitting me up on Snapchat and Facebook. And today, they're investors, and they're growing and having their real estate journey just like us. So we're really happy to be a part of that. So
That sounds great. When your friends can end up helping you grow in life, I think that is one of the most beautiful moments of life. Yeah.
Facts.
So after college, I mean, was it smooth sailing right after college? Did Rusty come, like, grace you with his presence and, like, oh, here's a job and here's everything you need? Or what was life like?
Hell no.
Right on.
For those of you who have seen sales movies like Glengarry Glen Ross, you don't get the Glengarry leads or the golden leads until you prove that you can not only talk to people, counsel people, and handle the sale, and all things encompassing of being a great salesman. And you don't do that without doing your 10,000 calls.
Got it. So you kind of, well, even before that, you kind of bounced around for a little bit before you even met Rusty, right?
Absolutely. I had various sales jobs. I mean, we met at an optometry store that focused on selling high-end Cartier, Chanel frames. And I felt like that was a good foundation for my sales in real estate, my sales skills in real estate, because I like the fact that, we were pitching high-end products, but with sort of a necessity to the end user, the end client. In the medical context, I'm taking a prescription, right, which is a medical necessity to address, right? Different types of lens that a client could purchase, right? The UV resistance and all of those cool things about high-end frames. Exactly. You would be more well versed than I am. I was more so selling the frames, but I was connecting that with a want, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't know what you want until seeing what's out there, and understanding who's behind the product. And that translated really well into the real estate side, because instead of counseling them on their prescription and what type of lens to get, I'm counseling on, what it is that they have in their portfolio currently and how we can optimize that. So
it's a much bigger ticket item, and I'm sure the returns are much bigger.
It's a much bigger ticket item, but the conversations are exactly parallel to what I do today. So
very interesting. That's a very interesting note. So on that note, how did you meet Rusty? How did you get started? Because if you didn't get started in this, how did you meet him?
It was at a rough time where I had not only broken up with my girlfriend at the time, I was struggling with some debt, credit card debt. I was just spending money very negligently and not thinking about, taking care of the Eddie 10, 20 years from now.
And that led you to a very kind of low place in your life, you would say, right?
Correct. I was DJing. I DJed a lot at my fraternity house at that time. I was into the party scene, and I realized I could not sustain if I continued the life that I had at that time, the lifestyle that I had at that time. So it was kind of a come to Jesus moment, because a lot of things weren't happening in my favor at the time. I was losing relationships left and right, and I really needed to self-reflect. And part of that self-reflection process forced me to look for a job that would not only benefit me on the short term, but something that I could do for the rest of my life. Because time is valuable, and when you hit 25 and you're trying to figure out, what it is you want to invest your time in, that's a very eye-opening experience. And so I gravitated back to real estate.
So what happened after college? Rusty didn't just come in, hand everything to you on a silver plate and say, here you are, Eddie, you graduated college, so here's 1 million leads, here's everything, and here's your dreams.
No, absolutely not. I owe a lot to where I am from Rusty's mentorship. And I apologize, it's just a lot to think about, because these 7 years have flown by.
Absolutely.
Like it was just yesterday.
No, I mean, even me, like, I've been working with you for about 5 years now on the whole marketing side of things and helping you grow that part. And dude, the half decade just felt like a blink of an eye. So, and I know a lot has happened, because I remember when I first started, we weren't really putting out much media at all. And even yourself, you had barely sold a couple properties, but now you have hundreds of properties under your belt with more than $20 million in transactions under your belt, right?
That's our annual figure, and that's going up now based on our trajectory. Look
at that smile.
2022. But
it didn't start off this way.
The first year I was in real estate, I made barely minimum wage, like $30K a year.
So what was that like? It obviously wasn't easy. It was a lot of struggle in the beginning.
Well, something you need to know is that when I was shadowing Rusty and before I got that job with TFS Properties, I told Rusty that I was willing to take any pay if he was willing to learn, if he was willing to teach everything that he knew about working with clients, the financial world, and how to broker products. And I said that to Mac and Rusty too, because they knew I was a hard-headed USC kid that was extremely, extremely motivated to do better for himself. And so, in that aspect, Rusty said, okay, we'll go get your real estate license and we'll see what happens. And so the next day I purchased my real estate course. I studied for a month and I took my test the following month and I passed the test and the rest is history. But it wasn't always like that, like what you said. Sorry, I digress. In the beginning, I was tasked to call Rusty's entire database, which comprised of about 12,000 leads
Every
clients,
single one.
prospects that were curated through 20 years of real estate seminars, estate planning seminars, people that were on the west side in LA all the way to Torrance, South Bay, and over on the east, Diamond Bar, Rolling Heights area, and everything in between. So I literally called at least 50 to 70 people every single day, following up with them, seeing how their portfolio was, inviting them to seminars. And then on top of calling people and filling the seminars, which, by the way, helped me get comfortable with dealing with high net worth individuals and sort of the pace and the cadence I needed to speak at in order to have them listen to me, get to know me, so that when they came to the seminar, they knew exactly who I was subconsciously not only teeing up future business, but I was also getting tons and tons of practice,
So in the beginning, you weren't as smooth because I see you operate now. Like when you go into a meeting room, like you go in and you know what's up, like you know what you're doing. But in the beginning, that wasn't the case, right? You kind of had to watch Rusty and learn from him, pick up tricks, pick up tips.
I was horrible.
You were horrible.
I was just choppy, not
Choppy,
smooth.
not
I was
smooth.
I was saying uhs a lot. I still say uhs here and there, but it's much more natural. But I had to mentally train myself to remove certain vocabulary and vernacular from my, the way I talk. I had to get financially literate. I had to, write down, I would say, almost 100 objections that I dealt with and how to counter the objections, and not only counter the objections, but bring it to somewhere that's a lot more conducive to new business. And it didn't always, and still doesn't always, come easy and go the way I wanted to. But now it's just, I'm in a more natural flow state. When I'm talking to clientele, I also come from a lot more experience, and that seems to resonate a lot with the investor now, and they could see a difference. So. But yeah, 10,000 calls. It's like, I'm a big diehard basketball fan, as you know, and the only way you're going to get better is to shoot your 10,000 shots and get those reps in. And so that's what happened.
What was sleep like during those times? Did you have to sleep on the couch, in the office, or what was that like?
Yeah, well, you know this story, but not only was I doing the calls, I was spearheading marketing at the time before you came to the firm, right?
Yeah, right.
I took marketing materials from the late 80s, early 90s, and I made them present time, present. Yeah,
Brought it to the modern day.
No more Times New Roman, Microsoft Word, copy and paste. This was actually like a full-on investor deck offering memorandum, and obviously our bandwidth is really tight right now, and we've offloaded it to, that's your division. So thank God that that's in place, and you took that over.
So in the beginning, you really were doing everything: calling, filling seminars, marketing, setting up all sorts of whatever pamphlets and
and physically setting up the seminar. I would be the first one there, the last one to go. Coordinating with the hotels, making sure the attendance is right, confirming. Anyways, the list goes on and on and on and on and on.
But it paid off. It led you to one of your first big sales, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Eventually, you didn't start off with triple net leases, but you sold a single family rental, which is a pretty big deal in my opinion.
So the one thing I would advise future real estate investors and brokers and entrepreneurs alike is to just be a sponge, man. Because again, part of the agreement that I had with Rusty was I was going to learn everything about the business, right, from his 25 years of experience. So in the beginning, I sat in all the consultations and I didn't say one single word. If you don't know the shot, don't take it, right? Yeah. So I listened, I learned, again, all of the tendencies and how conversations were, how conversations should go when talking with clients. And then from there, I got comfortable presenting at seminars, right? Yeah. Slowly, Rusty was like, okay, I'll let you talk, give a little 5-minute segment. And that 5-minute segment turned into 15, and that 15-minute segment turned on to, all right, can you just do this webinar, this seminar? And I would just do the full hour and a half. And that led to one of my first real estate sales, you know.
What was that like? Can you kind of tell us about that, your first real estate sale? Because I know Sal was one of your first real estate sales as well.
Sal was one of my first out-of-state clients, and I really appreciate him for that because as a friend, he could correct me and hold me accountable for all things that I was doing wrong. And
Did he do that during your first transaction and everything? Sal kind of, I see Sal shaking his head, but yeah, like.
So everyone wants a deal, right? And as good of a deal I thought was on paper, Sal pushed me to negotiate harder, and so I was able to give him an even better deal on paper because of his persistence in wanting to secure a deal. And I wanted to take care of him and get him a deal too, right?
Yeah.
I can't just show him something and expect him to sign. No, I had to go to battle for Sal and negotiate hard. And actually, one of the things that I'm great at, I think, was because I have a lot of practice in negotiation, the art of negotiation. But it all started from Sal and opening the doors for me, you know?
That's interesting because you're a killer negotiator, from what I noticed. In the sales room, like whatever it is, you're a really great negotiator. And it's interesting. So Sal kind of pushed you into that and made you really become an aggressive negotiator in the real estate industry.
Absolutely. I learned very quickly that the best deals are not on paper.
And that really helps bring a lot of value to any investors that come work with you, right? It's not just that you're going to get a great deal, but you, Eddie, are going to go to bat and try to negotiate lower prices, higher, like if we're selling a home, higher prices. If we're buying a property, lower prices. And we have tons and tons of examples of those properties, right?
It's all about leverage at the end of the day. If you know how to hone in on that, you're going to be a great negotiator. But
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so let's kind of dive in a little bit into, Sal and how you guys met, how, he holds you accountable, because Sal's becoming more and more of an important part of our company every day. As a financial analyst, he makes sure that all the deals make sense. He makes sure that everything is kosher and that, everything looks right. So he's a big part of it. But how did you guys even meet in the beginning? I know you guys said that you guys, met in the fraternity, but did you guys hit it off away? How did you guys meet? Like, what was the beginning like?
So I'll let you take this one.
Sure. I mean, I knew Eddie. I met him back in college when he was a freshman. And I'm 10 years older than Eddie, and I was going back for, USC football tailgate. Of course, I go back, and I'm a big fan of that. And our fraternity always sets up the tailgates, and being able to meet the new actives and new pledges just to introduce ourselves and see how they're doing, which is a great opportunity for them to get to see how the alumni have been doing throughout the years. Started speaking to him and just kind of saw him grow throughout the years while he's in college. After he graduated, we still kind of kept in touch, but once he got into real estate, he came up to me and was like, "Hey, I'm in real estate now. These are the kind of what I'm doing in my new life."
I invited him to my real estate seminar.
He did. And actually at that time, it was perfect timing because I've been in accounting for 10 years by then.
Wow.
Doing public accounting, I'm a CPA. Financially sound along with my other peers and folks.
Just out of curiosity, who did you work for when you did accounting for 10 years?
I started my career with Deloitte, did that for a few years, got my CPA, got some other certifications. I did like accounting. I went into USC as Leventhal accounting as well as business marshal, kind of double majored. Stuck with the accounting side. I just love numbers and it's what makes sense to me.
Got it.
After my years in Deloitte, I stuck with the Fortune 500 companies and just went to Farmers Insurance, Hyundai, Toyo Tires, Honda, just kind of consulted for different clients. But my wife and I, we accumulated a good amount of savings wanting to get into real estate because that's kind of where, again, rich dad, poor dad, that's where you want to eventually go. I looked into stocks and other investment opportunities. Those were great to start off with, but real estate is the long-term passive play.
Got it.
The conservative play.
Yeah, conservative too. I do invest in stocks and those are a little riskier, but again, there's risk versus returns. But my wife and I, we started saving and we were ready to buy a duplex, quadplex for almost $1 million in LA. We were ready for that. But just looking around, we can't find anything in LA at that time. And so we searched for almost 2 years.
That was how many years ago?
That was back in 2015, kind of when you got started.
Even in 2015 with $1 million, you guys are still having a hard time finding LA property.
Oh yeah. It was $1 million could maybe buy you something in San Pedro, Long Beach, something just kind of sketch that as a landlord, I wouldn't want to go there to collect rent, to upkeep the property. So we had the cash flow, but we didn't have the exposure to better things out of LA.
Got it. And that's where.
Yeah, that's when spoke to Eddie, and he invited me to this seminar and just kind of talked about the out-of-state opportunities that they had. Right. And I had looked in Vegas. Vegas was very popular back then, but heard many great things about Texas, and with Toyota moving out there, I just figured, hey, Eddie offered it up to take me out there, look at the properties that are there, kind of talk to we got to meet the property management companies, the developers, and just really got insight of what's going on in a state that I've never visited before. And that's what really sold me. And not just what I was buying, but Eddie's expertise, his knowledge, his attitude about that.
My affinity for good barbecue.
Oh yeah, the barbecue, of course, was amazing. Nothing beats Texas barbecue.
Nope.
And kind of going back to what we were saying about keeping him accountable. It's important as an investor. And now that I have investors, we have investors, I expect them to hold me accountable to what I sell to them. And I want to hold myself accountable to what we show to them.
It's like what we were saying earlier, your reputation precedes you and the word is bond.
Yeah, and we're always looking out for the client to try to get them a better deal. That time around, Eddie knew the developer, trying to get me a better deal. That gives us a little more working room on the cash flow that I was looking for. Initially it was maybe 6-7%, but now if we negotiate a little better, now it's up to 8%. And we run into things like COVID where it was, some people couldn't pay, or I couldn't rent a property out. That 8% cash flow year after year gives me some cushion to work with. COVID hit, now I'm back down to 6-5%. That's okay because I've been making that higher cash flow the years before. Same thing with the appreciation. If cash flow took a hit, I'm still seeing these markets increase.
Because of your high cap rate.
Exactly.
Investing out of state.
Yeah, that was amazing. I wanted to see the returns on the property before I started putting more money into someone, right? And that's with all my investments, and I encourage that to test out different things. If it works, then keep going with it because you've already done the due diligence yourself and you trust it. I've hired someone smarter that knows, that's an expert in his area that I trust, and that was really important for me. After a year, as a CPA, I re-looked back at the financials. And kind of, I went back to him and said, hey, how come, these things happened? And he was able to explain all these situations, and that just built my confidence in him. I mean, it's not real estate, stocks, nothing's ever going to go perfect, but you want someone that knows his stuff and be able to address it when you have questions on it.
Yeah, nothing ever goes smoothly, but you want an agent that is able to help you with those things when they happen.
Right, and someone that doesn't get flustered. So with that was my first single family home. I started investing in other products within TFS, and that syndications. We talked about syndications. They're great. They were my opportunity to get into much larger scale projects, like a $25 million commercial retail center out in Michigan. As a single investor, I could never get into that exposure. But with syndications and with Eddie and Corey, HAH, being able to help me understand what I was getting into, I was very comfortable with that. And since then, I've been in 3 other syndications, all with TFS.
So you went from investing in one home to syndications to becoming more and more interested in the company, it looks like, because now you're working for us. How did that happen?
Oh, yeah, it's been great, just learning so much from Eddie and what he's learned in real estate and all the different products. Got into manufactured homes as well. Full circle, as working in public accounting for so long, I saw the real opportunities in real estate and how I could not only build my own portfolio, but I've told many of my friends and family about my investments in real estate and TFS. And I've, like you talked about earlier, how being able to change and improve my friend's life, being able to help them earn passive income is ultimately, I found the passion in that. And that helped me get the transition into, hey, I do want to get my real estate license. I know a really good guy in real estate that I could potentially work with.
Yeah.
So, hey, we ended up talking for a while, and I ended up getting my test, taking my test and passing, and ended up joining the team.
Just an FYI, Sal, I think, got like a perfect score on his real estate exam. So that just goes to show the work ethic, that we are getting into our team, and and the tremendous amount of knowledge, experience, and we have our finance guy now, so our underwriting is always
Spot on.
spot on.
Yeah, and I think that's so important for investors. I'm looking at deals, even if I'm not the one purchasing it. I'm looking at the investor side of things. That what would I want to see, and that's kind of what I present to our clients.
And that's a smart move, because if you make good moves for investors, they're only going to come back and look for you in the future, right?
Absolutely. We take it one notch above. And just to add on to what Sal was saying, because we have that accounting background and reinforcement into our spreadsheets, now we factor in depreciation, cost segregation, where you can accelerate the depreciation, spread across many of our investors' portfolios, which could consist of, a triple net lease plus single family plus commercial syndication. We really architect really creative portfolios that not only drive maximum yield, but are also diversified and conservative at the same time. So if you think about it that way,
Yeah, it's been amazing.
pretty intricate accounting
Exactly.
to make sure you're dialed in.
Yeah, no, and you guys are dealing with like big deals, like not just single family homes anymore. Like with these big triple net deals, like Sal's expertise really comes into play and really helps you guys analyze the numbers and make sure that they're solid deals, right?
Yeah, and triple nets have been great. Like what Eddie had mentioned earlier, you have these clients that purchased into multifamilies years ago and is now ready to capture some appreciation. They ended up selling it, so we do this thing called a 1031, which is a great tax savings, and they get to level up with a bigger property, such as these triple nets.
Just really quickly, a 1031 exchange allows you to sell an investment property and purchase a new one while deferring those taxes. So it allows you to reinvest a lot more of your original income instead of sacrificing some of it to Uncle Sam.
Exactly, and we show all the numbers, and then Eddie does the negotiation for the clients.
Sounds like a great team.
Oh yeah, we've been in some battles, but it's very fun.
I bet.
Thrive off of that type of back and forth action.
That's what your bread and butter is now, right? Like a lot of triple net leases are done in our company, are executed by you. Those deals are basically taken care of by you. And I would say that you've moved beyond just doing single family rentals, like triple net leases, development deals. Like, can you tell us a little bit about triple net leases, what your involvement with them is, how you got into it, and why you think it's a great investment for people?
Yeah, absolutely. Triple nets, for the investor that doesn't know or is unfamiliar with, are one of the more conservative plays in real estate. A lot of owners who own rental property probably will think about or consider or aspire to transition into triple nets when it's all said and done. When they're done building their real estate empire, this is an asset type that should be incorporated into all real estate investor portfolios, because the benefits are so amazing.
What are some of the benefits of a triple net lease?
Well, for instance, a triple net lease is, contrary to multifamily where I'm dealing with tenants on a year-to-year basis, a triple net lease tenant could be in my building for anywhere between 10, 15, 20 years, plus, 4 or 5 year option periods on top of that. So really you're thinking about something that could be paying you rental income for in excess of 20 to 50 years if you buy the right property.
Why are the leases so long? Like, who's staying there for 10, 15 years? Who would want to stay in a building for 10, 15 years?
Picture yourself as a tenant that's operating a business like a Popeyes or an In-N-Out Burger.
Got it.
If I can secure a good piece of real estate in a good location and operate my business and thrive there and negotiate a long-term deal where I know that, I'm locked in and my business will thrive, that's a good deal for both sides, right?
Got it.
And as areas grow and gentrify and increase in population, that benefits the business, who's going to be generating more revenues, but also benefits the landlord or the owner of the property, and in this case, many of our investors, because sales are going to go up, which means the business is going to perform better, which means the credit of the tenant is better, which means even better security for all of the capital they invested into the property.
And I want to say one of the perfect examples of this is an In-N-Out burger that you helped a client purchase, I would say at the end of 2019.
Yes.
When they purchased it, it was just an In-N-Out burger, which is a great deal to begin with.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and the cap rate that we purchased for, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, like, well, do you mind sharing that cap rate?
Sure, yeah. So when you think about properties and their security, In-N-Out Burger, probably the most successful fast food chain, all privately, corporately owned here in California, and now branching out to Vegas and Texas.
People who don't live here even know about In-N-Out Burger and want to come try it.
Every location of an In-N-Out Burger generates about $4 to $6 million in sales.
Wow. Okay.
On average.
Wow.
Right? There's some that are superior, there's some that are maybe a little less, but 4 to 5, 6 million is still 4 times what a normal fast food chain can generate in gross sales. Now, the rents are pretty much the same across the board. Every tenant's paying about 100, 150K in rent if you're here in LA. But picture if you're an In-N-Out Burger and you generate $5 million in sales and you're only paying 100K in rents. That's such a small percentage of all of the gross sales that business generates that striking that check for 100K a year is
It's like paying an electricity
nothing.
bill.
It's like paying an electricity bill, right? Now, on the flip side, if I'm the property owner, I'm like, that's as secure as it gets. That's as conservative as it gets. That's essentially a legacy play for my client's heirs, which it ended up being. And that's something that's going to pay them rent for the rest of their lives.
Just a quick note, a legacy play for their heirs. That basically means that they're buying a property with the intention of passing it on to their heirs.
That is correct. When people inherit property, they receive what's called a step-up in basis. And again, without getting too technical, that creates huge depreciation benefits when the heirs inherit the property. And a lot of people buy real estate to set up their heirs. And that's why the estate planning component of our real estate brokerage is such a huge facet as to why clients gravitate towards us to do business.
So for such a conservative play, something like In-N-Out, I would expect the return, the cap rate, which is kind of like another word for return on investment, would you say? So the cap rate for this, I would expect it to be what, like 1, 2, 3%, right? We're in LA, we got such a conservative play. The cap rate should be ridiculously low.
Not
What was
1%.
it? Okay, maybe
'Cause
not
then people would be
1%.
more inclined to invest in like a bond, but
2, 3, let's say percent.
in today's market, it's probably a 3 cap, 3.25 cap. Depending on where you are, especially here in California, probably like 3.25 cap, and no flex on pricing whatsoever. The timing of when we purchased that property was really key because we got that at like a 4.5 cap.
4.5 cap. That's like a multifamily here.
Yeah, exactly. That same property, they could probably flip it and make like 300 grand on it after like a 2-year holding period. So, I love triple net lease deals to the point where I've called every single major triple net lease broker in the entire country, build a relationship with them. I send them my references so they know that I perform. And in addition to that, we get pre-market deals, off-market deals. So I'll call up one of my buddies and just say, hey, look, what do you have coming up in your pipeline? And he'll show me a deal, and a lot of the times we'll just take it down before it even hits the market. We know what the seller wants, we know what our buyer wants, and we align the two and we do the deal. So this is extremely beneficial in the 1031 exchange world, which hopefully we'll cover in a future podcast episode. But
Yeah, definitely.
time is of the essence in those types of deals.
Definitely. Though, to kind of, bring this to an end, I want to talk about, you're doing big triple net deals, and is this kind of where you eventually see yourself ending up?
Yeah, I would like to, and Sal, correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe I'm pretty sure our goals are aligned. We would like to show our hometown, the San Gabriel Valley market, more about what's outside of California. A lot of brokers will do deals in their local area, and that's totally fine. But as we get more, as investments become more prevalent in one's life, like you want to be able to see what's out there. There are markets that do appreciate, as what we experience in Dallas, but without doing your homework and your due diligence, how will you ever know about it, right? So our goal with TFS Properties is to introduce more out-of-state markets to Californians, especially locally here. We want to obviously increase our sales. We do about 50 million in transactions between a very, very small group of agents. We want to build out sort of our residential division that we're working on, because there are some immaculate homes here in the San Gabriel Valley, and San Gabriel Valley is starting to pivot into a luxury market. I mean, houses that used to trade for 200K are now bottom line 700K starting price, right?
And what parts of San Gabriel?
I mean, I'm talking about Rosemead, Alhambra, El Monte. You know, these
were not luxurious
No.
areas 10 years ago.
No, but they're starting to become that. And again, you're seeing new construction pop up everywhere. You know, where we are in the restaurant today in Sierra Madre, that it used to be under the radar, but now, you know, the average home price in Sierra Madre is at least $1 million. And so, that being said, you know.
So opportunities are dwindling in LA for people to make a lot of money.
Exactly. And we know virtually every street here within the city. So, we want to focus on bigger deals, more institutional grade deals down the line, but continue to grow what we have to offer currently. And our team is ever expanding. We just brought on 2 new agents on board, and very excited to see what it brings in the future. So
Awesome. And just out of curiosity, what are your plans for TFS? If I were to ask you, where do you see TFS 2 years from now? I think that's fairly reasonable. 2 years from now is a lot of time, 24 months. You can get a lot of accomplished. Because you're going to be able to watch this 2 years from now and see if you achieved your goals. But what do you expect out of TFS Properties in 2 years?
I think what I want to see, and kind of goes on point with what Eddie had said, I was a customer looking for other opportunities out of state. And that's exactly what TFS was able to bring, and we're going to continue bringing that to people in San Gabriel Valley. There's a lot of markets out there, markets within markets. We're in Texas. We're huge in Houston and Indianapolis and, Phoenix, Florida. But there's just so many mini markets that we want to get into, and I think that would be a great 2-year goal, to just expand into these more up and coming markets. We know that, the top 25 markets are pretty saturated. Dallas, Austin, Seattle, those are pretty tough to get into, and just kind of like LA, it's already been tapped out. But there's other markets like Indianapolis. I think that's a great market where we're seeing a very popular uptrend, a lot more tourism, a lot more travel to that area. And our goal is to do the due diligence for, future investors, future clients, and be able to provide products in those areas.
Okay, awesome. No, that's great. So you're kind of basically expanding our inventory, diving into the markets, so that when investors come to us, they don't have to do the extensive amount of research that we do, and we already point them into those markets, and from there, the investors can decide which specific properties in the specific areas work for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And we do have a lot of California clients. They've never been into those cities or states, just like me. We make it as easy as possible for them to invest out of state. And we'll talk about those in future podcasts. But all our single family homes that we sell, there's already a tenant in place. There's already property management in place. And the tours are important because we go and bring the clients there to meet the property management, so that everybody gets comfortable with, who they're dealing with before they even purchase.
So I think you just said 2 things that really separates us from everybody else, is that we bring people on the tours, and we really make sure that the investments that we sell are as passive as possible. So with the triple net leases, with our single family rentals, so for the example, the triple net leases, pretty much everything is taken care of by the tenant, right? So if In-N-Out Burger sits on that land, if it's an absolute triple net lease, they take care of any type of maintenance, any type of issues, any type of insurance, all that is taken care of.
pay your property taxes, they fix the building for you. Everything is net. That's why I love it.
Beautiful. And then with the single family rentals and even our manufactured homes in Houston, we have property management in place, maintenance programs in place. So we really try to make it as hands off for the investor as possible.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Awesome. And I think that's what really separates us from other agencies as well. We go above and beyond. We're not just going to sell you a home. We're going to sell you a home and try to make sure that it's easy and as passive as possible.
Right.
Correct. And I'd like to add on to that, outside of just selling the home, also providing financial analysis, seeing the full picture of what you're trying to accomplish, in a 1-year term, 5-year term, or even what you're planning for your heirs. These are all services that we incorporate as part of what a normal broker should be doing, but then some, right? We've also entered the short-term rental space, Airbnb space. So we're in markets such as Las Vegas, Indianapolis, like what Sal said, which I think is going to be a market to watch for in the next 2 to 3 years.
Indianapolis?
Yep. Joshua Tree and Scottsdale, Arizona. We have an Airbnb outfit there that we just introduced and are rolling out this year. And on top of that, we're in the hospitality space. Right now, we're sitting in our restaurant that we purchased, which is purchased in the pandemic, which is full-fledged right now. And, yes, we're in a pandemic right now, and we're rolling with the punches with Omicron, but we built so many relationships by opening up this restaurant. It's 10 minutes away from our office, and we have an extravagant whiskey collection.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, let's kind of talk about, we're nearing the end of our podcast now. Let's talk a little bit about things that you guys are passionate about, places you guys want to plug.
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to plug in Row Fusion. This is the restaurant. We'll probably do a whole segment on Row Fusion in one episode, but...
So where can people find Row Fusion? What is it? Like, what do you guys do?
Row Fusion is located on 120 West Sierra Madre Boulevard in Sierra Madre. If you're from LA, you know where Pasadena is. We're the next city over. If you're from 626/San Gabriel Valley, we're 5 minutes north of the Arcadia Mall. You guys will understand where that is.
It's super close to Arcadia Mall. Literally, you just hop on Baldwin, go north a little bit, and you're here.
This is a passion project with my brothers, my friends who I call my brothers. And when we got into this space, the perfect type of restaurant we would open as foodies is Japanese food with fusion elements and a full whiskey bar / tequila and exotic cocktails.
Why all that? Is that like something that you're into, or?
Oh yeah, for those of you that don't know me, I'm a hardcore, I love Japanese things, all things Japan. It's part of my heritage, and just the way they, curate whiskeys, or, the anime. I watch all animes. I'm an anime junkie. Naruto, Dragon Ball are big parts of my childhood, and then as I grew older, sushi, Japanese whiskeys, and just going to Japan really opened my eyes on how things should be done. If you're perfecting your craft, Japan is at the forefront of all that. So today we have Nika Takatsuru from our purveyors. I mean, everybody knows the House of Suntory line, the Hibikis, the Yamazakis, but purists know that Nika is right there, and this is part of one of their line called the Takatsuru, full of flavor. And as whiskey purists, we love to have a good whiskey at the end of the day. So.
No, I feel it. No, I totally understand. It's nice to have that unwind at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. And I think Japanese whiskey has really penetrated the market.
Oh, definitely.
Especially in LA. Even Costco sells Japanese whiskey, and of course the popular ones, Yamazaki's.
They've gone up in price.
They have. They're very rare. It's gotten very popular. But actually at Row, we get access to a lot of these things that aren't available to the public.
Yep.
And we have them in stock. We have them as flights for our customers to try.
Awesome. Sounds good. Anything else you guys want to plug? Anything else you guys want to talk about? Future plans or anything like that?
No, but come by Row Fusion. We designed this place from beginning to end. All of the interior design was spearheaded by our Vancouver partner, our Vancouver designer, Kalu Interiors. They're killing it up in Canada. So if you ever want like a luxury home build, definitely check them out. That's family for me. And TFS Properties, please follow us on social media at TFS Properties, tfsproperties.com.
All socials, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, we're on it all.
Yep, TFS Properties. And we're starting to build our social profiles as well. So punch the subscribe button. We would love to see your support, and we can continue hopefully to add value to you guys. And our Instagram handles will also be at the bottom of this link as well.
Yeah, so we'll link their Instagrams. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to them, DM them. I'm sure they're more than happy to answer any questions. But thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next podcast.
Thanks.
Cheers.